huge storylines this week about Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin does a Vanity Fair interview. And I have to tell you, Joshua, I actually thought that he was not doing an actual Vanity Fair article when he was posting about doing all the pictures. I thought it was just like to get back at Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss for his Vanity Fair article. Nope, he does his full one. And there's one quote that makes the rounds almost immediately. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm going to defer to you on this. But let me read the quote. So this is so Kiffin is talking about leaving Ole Miss, and he comes up with a number of different things to kind of defend it and move on. But then he says that he is talking about recruiting and Ole Miss's struggle to distance itself from the Confederate flag. I mean, the name Ole Miss, there's still a lot of it, but the Confederate flag has been a very recent separation. And Kiffin says that top recruits would tell him, quote, "Hey, coach, we really like you, but my grandparents aren't letting me move to Oxford, Mississippi." That doesn't come up when you say Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Parents were sitting here this weekend saying the campus diversity feels so great. It really feels like there's no segregation. We want that for our kid because that's the real world. After he says this, the next day, Kiffin reaches back to the writer at Vanity Fair and he says, "I hope that the comment comes across as respectful to Ole Miss. There are things that I'm saying that are factual and they're not shots." So he then, is kind of just defending like the diversity of Baton Rouge specifically. Mm-hmm. A day later, he apologizes or tells On3, "I really apologize if anyone at Ole Miss or in Mississippi was offended by that. In a 4-hour interview, I was asked a lot of questions on a lot of things. Ole Miss has been wonderful to me and my family. I was asked questions about the differences in recruiting, and I said a narrative that we battled there was out of state. Black parents and grandparents were not wanting their kid to move to Mississippi. That's a narrative that coaches have been fighting forever. It wasn't calculated by bringing it up." Floor is yours. What did you make of these comments in general and kind of the response to them?
I think he's telling the truth when he says it's a narrative that they have to battle. I texted in a group chat with you, like, I would never send my kids to Ole Miss. And I'm not trying to be nasty towards people down south. Like, I've never really spent time in the deep south, but I was born in Tennessee and I lived part of my life in North Carolina as a kid. And it certainly does have a different feel, but like rebels, like that means something to me. Like the idea that the state of Mississippi did not officially abolish slavery until 2013 means something to me. The fact that they were one of the last, if not the last schools in the SEC to integrate both their university and their football team means something to me. Now there are other parts of this where I feel like it's a lot of narrative and a lot of the past that still carries weight, where Ole Miss is one of the schools in the SEC that has a higher Black student body population than some of the other schools, not as high as LSU, but certainly surpassing other schools in the SEC. In terms of like student life, they have all 9 Black fraternities and sororities on campus. Now, that came with drama too, because they were the last SEC school to integrate their fraternity row. And when they were doing it, like the Sigmas were the first fraternity that were going to move in on campus, their house got set on fire, right? So like there are all these things, and it's a very complicated deal. I think what he's talking about there in terms of battling that narrative is absolutely real. The flip side of this is, although LSU might be a little bit more diverse and Baton Rouge as a city might be a little bit more diverse, like I'm also not looking at that as like the beacon of diversity. And you can check some of the Twitter responses where LSU fans were like, "We don't want to be known as diverse." And it's like, that's a weird thing to say when your coach is trying to be like, it's easier for us to recruit here. So yeah, I mean, I think it's complex. And by the way, like Lane Kiffin might be the right message. He's the wrong messenger for any of this, because it feels like Lane doing what Lane has always done. And maybe he's trying to like soften why he left. And it's like, oh, that's a bad place with racist history, and I'm not trying to be a part of that. And it's like, no, you're an opportunist. You went for an opportunity, and you can just say that.
Agree on all points. I also think that you're there for a long period of time, and you could have done more to fight that stuff publicly.
Sure, you could have.
As the head coach there.
Yes.
So again, like, seems like a tough thing to say afterwards. And again, I agree with you. I think that, there were a lot of people who made a lot of valid points about, how much talent there is in the state of Mississippi, and neither of those schools have won a national championship, right? Because like they do want to leave. They do want to live in other places if you have options. because of the history of that state and the amount of Confederate flags and all of those things. People have brought up the history of the name of the LSU Tigers and how that's ties to the Confederate Army as well.
Yep.
So there's a lot there. And I agree with you. I think that saying it after you leave does make you the wrong messenger for the message. It is hollow. And especially elsewhere in this article of saying like, no other coach told me to stay. Like, it's my story. Everyone there should be happy because, admissions and applications were up and I did my part. Like, it just ends up feeling like a laundry list of things that are helping Lane Kiffin sleep at night.
Yeah, it does.
And not like this genuine effort to like have a real conversation about recruiting in the state of Mississippi.
No, I'm totally there. Like this, I think it's a very interesting topic to actually have a conversation around if your purpose is to improve the perception of that university, right? Like I think that actually has to be a very difficult challenge, no doubt. But to your point, like it wasn't about that. That's not what it was about. It felt like certainly a shot and a reason to make himself feel better. The thing that you just said stands out to me because it feels so Lane Kiffin, where it's like, I talked to all these people and nobody told me to stay. But also, this is my story. And it's like, okay, but was it about them and what they told you, or is this actually your story? Because you say, but this is my story when you don't listen to what everybody told you to do. So it's a weird thing that he likes to do. And now we've got all these quotes to deal with.
Right. And he's still obviously upset by the way he left. He's still obviously upset that like they wouldn't let him coach the team in the playoff. We talked about this, ad nauseum in the winter. Like he was, every single week, is he going to let them coach? Is he going to let them come? Are they flying back to Baton Rouge? Like he was constantly inserting himself into Ole Miss's playoff run and making it harder for them. So it's just like, there's just so much bad blood. We know that return game is going to be a primetime game on ABC.
Ooh-wee.
It almost feels like he's trying to rile people up further. And like he is, we've seen him be a social media troll. We've seen him do certain things on purpose. And he's claiming this one wasn't, and that, it was part of a long conversation and it wasn't meant to be a shot. But there's no way that, people who live in Oxford, people in Mississippi who've been trying to move past, like to help that state and that community specifically move past all of the stuff with the Confederate flag and it's then the racist history and all of that stuff. Like, how are people supposed to take that otherwise?
Not
and
well.
How is already a spurned fan base, already a group of people that don't like you. You're just adding more fuel to the fire here of that game that day, because now you're making it like about like the history of the state, of the people there, and all these things that, again, there's a lot of people in Mississippi who are really trying to work on like, addressing the past, like owning up to it and helping to move forward. And he just brought it all up.
And once again, like, and again, I'm not trying to take a shot at LSU, but like we're not making the comparison between like, UCLA and Ole Miss or like Oregon and Ole Miss and their thoughts on like, diversity and whatever the case is. Like LSU and Ole Miss, brother, like you're still down there. Like that, like there's still issues, whether it's historical or not. Like there's still real issues that are down there. Right. So like this, it just, from a lot of different angles, it feels like a strange thing to bring up and then to try to be like, oh, I'm not trying to be the bad guy. Like, no, it definitely feels like you were trying to be the bad guy.
But that's what Lane does. He does things or says things, but then gets upset. People get upset by them because he actually does want to be liked. And this stuff bothers him, even though he causes it, even though he says something or his actions cause it. I don't think he is fully comfortable embracing being a villain to Ole Miss fans. Like he still is trying to be like, I did everything that I could. Like I helped them. I kept up my end of the bargain.
I feel like being a football coach, if you want to be liked by everybody, that's a tough deal. But also when you have been a villain in the past and you were on the straight and narrow, it seemed like, and then you do the heel turn once again, there's no coming back. Like I think you have to fully lean in if you're Lane at this point.